Hi, I'm Sarah.
And this is Coda.
If you like these stories, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment which city you're watching from.
Kimse magkano namatay?
Hi, I'm Sarah.
And this is Coda.
If you like these stories, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment which city you're watching from.
The wait is over. I'm testing the signal, but staying anchored here. Thank God you're here. We've got you. Let's get out of here.